special place in my heart, and I'm not standing for it. This is not a facility, this is a home.
Some of the reaction we got just a few days ago. Now, breaking news here tonight at 5. They're putting the brakes on it. JCPS late today announcing they're holding off on that plan to close, sell, and consolidate some JCPS schools. It comes after 3 days of passionate feedback from parents and students. The email today from Board Chairman Corey Scholl saying they've told the superintendent, Brian Yearwood, to give them a more thorough justification for this plan to close the schools. This announcement coming out just after 3 today. It is a late-breaking development with that big school board vote still set for next Tuesday night.
So we asked former school board member and our longtime education expert, Sam Corbett, to join us to talk about this big decision. So Sam, really, we heard this from the superintendent last night saying, yeah, we may need to rethink this after he's hearing all these passionate cries from folks.
Connie, as I looked at the press release that they sent out, as Doug said, just at 3 o'clock this afternoon, kind of reading between the lines, it sounds like to me that the board didn't have much more of a heads up about these proposed closures and consolidations than the community did.
Right.
I think they were somewhat surprised, and now they've basically said to the superintendent and his team, whoa, stop, we need to talk about this.
Well, this email that came out today, not from Yearwood, it came out from Corey Scholl and James Craig. What do you think about that line that I just put in there about they want more of a justification? They're basically, are they throwing Dr. Yearwood under the bus in this thing, or what? Are they blaming him for this?
I don't know that I'd go that far, but I do think they're raising some issues with the superintendent and his team about, number one, how did you reach these conclusions? And they've talked about they have a formula that takes into account the attendance, the age of the building, the cost per student. They factored all that in. But as we talked about a couple weeks ago, what they didn't factor in is these are emotional decisions when you start consolidating and or closing schools. And that's really what we've seen. The community has risen up, as you said, the community related to King Elementary has certainly made their opinions known, and I think the board said, "Oh, hold on, we got to think about this."
But they kind of, let's talk about this. This was a problem before Dr. Yearwood was hired.
Right.
The deficit came from this board and the former superintendent, so he's got to figure out a way to cut. And they kind of left the door. Well, we might have to go back to this. We still might have to do it.
True, but I had somebody comment to me yesterday at lunch. They said, you know, they're getting all this pushback. They're going through all of this rigmarole around these closures, and they're only going to save $4 million. They have a $130 to $180 million problem. Is it really worth all the pain and suffering for a $4 million savings?
Well, if you pull this plan off the table, then you really got to wonder where they're going to get the savings. So let me ask you about that. We did an open records request. We asked JCPS how many people in the central office make 6 figures or more. They got back to us and said 485 employees at JCPS in non-school locations, so that would be more than the central office, make $100,000 or more. If you just calculated at the 100,000 level, that's $48.5 million as we did today. So is that where you make up the money, layoffs?
That's where you make up some of it. We've talked about this before. Again, I remind people, 80% of their budget is labor. Those are people. And if you're going to cut millions of dollars out of the budget for next year, starting in July, you're going to have fewer people on the payroll. Some of them could be these 100,000 plus folks. It could be a lot of other folks. But the superintendent is also on record as saying, I'm not touching school-based people. You referenced non-school-based people in this request that you made. So if you eliminate all the school-based administrators and folks, where you're going to get $100+ million in savings, that's a lot of people.
All right, our longtime education expert, Sam Corbett. Thanks for coming in this afternoon.
My pleasure.